This is CS952, Introduction to Web Technology and Design, and we just finished adding in all of the data for our table, and we're going to go to live view in a second and make everything look a little bit sharper, but let's just have a look at what we've got here in code view. So if we go to code view, we can see that all those empty cells have the information filled in them now. So this is what our table looks like with all the information added to it. And again, it's very handy that Dreamweaver put all this information in for us, because coding all this by hand can be somewhat challenging. So we were in design view because design view really works well when you need to add in text or edit text or paste in text. Now we're going to go to live view, and in live view we're going to clean this table up so that it looks a little bit better. Right now it doesn't look all that great. So what we're seeing is the default appearance of a table in the Bootstrap framework, but Bootstrap has a few other classes that make tables look better. So I want to select my table. Now I can do that. To me, the fastest way to select the table is just in the status bar along the bottom, just to click on table. I could have also clicked on table. We've been taking advantage of the feedback that we get from the Document Object Model panel, the DOM panel, to let us know exactly where we were in the table. If we look here in our DOM panel, I'm going to slide this up so we can get a little bit more room. If we look in our DOM panel, we can see we've got a table, a caption, the table body, and then table row, table row, table row, table row, table row. This last table row is open up for us. But we can see the 6 rows that we have that make up our table, and that's all contained inside the table body, and that's all contained inside of the table. So I've got my table selected. So what I want to do is I want to add a class of table. I want to click on my class over here. I can add my class here in the Properties Inspector. Let's do that in the Properties Inspector. So if we scroll down, I'm going to keep scrolling down. You can see all these classes. These are all classes that are provided by the Bootstrap framework. So you can see Bootstrap provides a lot of classes to help us get going. And the one that we want to use is just the one that's called table. And you can see as soon as we add that table class, look how much nicer everything looks. Spacing looks so much better as soon as we apply the table class to our table. So now if I click on my table and I look up here, I can see HTML tag is a table, and then I can see .table. That lets us know that it's a member of the table class. We're going to add another class to this. So I'm going to click on the plus icon right here, and the next class that we want to add is table striped, and that's going to stripe every other row, and visually we get more feedback when we look at the table. It helps us separate what we're looking at. So to make this a member of the table class, table striped class, is pretty easy. I'm going to type period, and when I type a period, of course that means that I'm getting ready to add a class, right? Because classes always start with a period. IDs always start with a pound sign. And I'm going to type in table, T-A-B-L-E, and that's enough for Dreamweaver to get rid of all the other information and just help me focus on my table classes. And the one that I want to add is table striped. So this is the one I want right here, table striped. I'm going to click on table striped, and as soon as I do that, it's a little bit hard to see on this particular screen, but we now have striped tables. If I go over here and choose preview in Chrome, I'm going to be asked, do I want to save changes? And I'm going to say yep. So now we can see there's a nice subtle shading to every other row. The table looks a lot better than we did when we got started, right? Let's switch back to Dreamweaver, and we're going to add one more class, and that's going to be a class of table hover, which means that when we hover over each one of those rows, we're going to get a little bit more visual feedback. The color is going to change slightly. So to add another class, click on the plus icon right here, type a period, which means we're getting ready to add classes, and already Dreamweaver is trying to show us all the possible classes we could add. But I'm just going to type in table, T-A-B-L-E, and now you can see that Dreamweaver is keeping track of what we're doing. So Dreamweaver is not showing us table striped, right? Because we already used table striped. And plain old table's not available either, because we're already using plain old table. So Dreamweaver is just showing us the table classes that we have not used yet. And the one that we want is table hover. So I'm going to click on that, and I am going to choose to preview in a browser, preview in Chrome, and then Dreamweaver will ask, do you want to save these changes? Because I hadn't saved the changes yet. Now I'm going to say, yep, save the changes. And here we have it. And now you notice as we hover over each one of those rows, we get a little shading out there to help us see what see which row we're hovering over. And that is all it takes to add a table to our website. So we specified the number of rows and columns in Dreamweaver and let Dreamweaver add all the empty table cells for us. We pasted in the information, and then we applied several different Bootstrap classes to give it this nice formatting. And this wraps up the table. We're going to come back and then get started adding a new page to our website that we didn't add before, that we didn't create yet. We're going to create a new page, a contact page, and then we're going to build a form in the contact page.